Welcome to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Kristen.
And my name is Katie. And we want to spend a few minutes a day with you walking through the New Testament, one chapter at a time. This year, we will fix our gaze upon Christ so that we may know him, not only with our minds, but with our hearts.
Together, we will learn that who Jesus is changes everything. Welcome back to A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. My name is Kristen Schmucker, and this year we are studying the New Testament chapter by chapter, and today we come to Matthew 17. From everyone at the Daily Grace Co., we are so glad you are here. It is such a joy to open Scripture together. As a reminder, I am using the free Behold reading plan and the Behold study guides from the Daily Grace Co. I'll link those for you in the show notes. Today we start with the Transfiguration. It's kind of a big funny word, and you might be wondering what in the world that even means. In this scene in the gospel story, we see Jesus taking his closest disciples, Peter, James, and John, up to a high mountain. The Bible describes the Transfiguration as this short glimpse of heaven on earth. As Jesus was transfigured, his face shone like the sun, and his clothing was shining like light. Can you imagine what it would have been like to have been there in that moment? I love thinking about how I would have felt if I was there and what I would have done. Like, this one is hard for me to even wrap my head around. There's a line in the Christmas hymn, Hark the Herald Angels Sing, that says, "Veiled in flesh, the Godhead see." I love that line and how much it makes me think about the glory of Christ, who came to us as a baby. I love thinking about that in light of this passage. It is like the humanity of Christ is a veil that obscures the fullness of his glory while he was here on earth. But in this passage, Peter, James, and John get to see a glimpse of what was there, but hidden. Suddenly, Jesus is not alone with his disciples. Moses and Elijah appear as well. Moses and Elijah are likely here as a representation of the law and the prophets. But I am still pondering what exactly they were talking about with Jesus on the mountain. Then we hear from our guy, Peter, what to do with this poor guy. He somehow thinks it is a good idea to suggest a tent for Jesus and one for Moses and Elijah as well. The disciples were on such a journey of faith, so we have to give him a little slack. He had missed the deep difference between Jesus and these men. While they were speaking, the cloud of God's presence came, a reference to the pillar of cloud that led the people of God through the wilderness. This time it rested on Jesus in a way leading all people to him who is our hope and our destination. The words of the Father ring out from the mountaintop are words that echo the Father's words at Jesus' baptism. "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Listen to him." This is the voice of God to those on the mountain that day and to us as well. Listen to him. Follow him. Behold him. And just as quickly as the Transfiguration began, it is over. I imagine the disciples were never the same. And when they came down from the mountain, Jesus meets a man whose son is sick. The disciples apparently had not been able to cast out the demon and heal the boy, but Jesus does it with a word. Jesus' power over the demonic is unparalleled. When he's asked by his disciples why they couldn't cast the demon out, Jesus reminds them of the necessity of faith. But he also tells them of the power of faith as small as a mustard seed. Our faith is not about mustering it up from some strength of our own, but of resting in Jesus, who is the one who is all powerful. This isn't about going through the motions of being a Christian. This is not much different than what the religious leaders of Jesus' day were doing. Spiritual things in our own power are worthless. We need Christ in us to do what he has called us to do. This account is also listed in the book of Mark, and it is there that the Father says to Jesus, "I believe, help my unbelief." This man got it. He knew that he needed Jesus for even the faith to believe in him. Again, we see Jesus telling the disciples about what is to come. Yet when he references his upcoming betrayal, death, and resurrection, the disciples are dismayed. Though they get more and more glimpses of what is to come, they do not yet fully understand the plan of God that will unfold. The passage ends with the tax collectors trying to trick Jesus and the disciples again by asking if Jesus will pay the temple tax. Jesus submits himself to the temple tax, but he does it in an almost humorous way by getting the money to pay from the mouth of a fish. How do we behold Jesus in today's reading? The Transfiguration gives us so many ways. Jesus is both the Lord of glory and the humble and lowly man that came to seek sinners. We should be left in awe of both of these aspects of who he is. We behold him as the one that our faith rests on. No matter how small or how shaky our faith may be, our hope is in him alone. We see him as the one who knows our futures and knows what is ahead. And even when we don't, or we are worried about what is to come, he is with us through it all.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of A Year in the Bible with Daily Grace. Don't forget to check out the show notes for helpful links and resources related to today's episode. And make sure you are following at Daily Grace Podcast on Instagram for more A Year in the Bible content, and at the Daily Grace Co. for all things Bible study resources. We can't wait to study again with you tomorrow. Bye, friends.